and it says that I'm live. So I'm live. Welcome to Tokyo Tonight. Good to see you all. So a couple of things. I guess before. Oh, and you know what? I just realized. Boom. I need to be. I had my new experimental technical setup showing. So sorry. This is me, Hikosaemon. Every Sunday night, 11 p.m. Japan time. Preparing for Super Typhoon something. I don't know, it's number 9. It's number 19. That's all that we call it here in Japan. It's a big one, but it's kind of it's like losing a bit of its force. It will be coming to Tokyo probably late tomorrow. But yes, this is a long weekend. Tomorrow is Sports Day in Japan, which is in fact the day that most days have their sports day over this long weekend, which is basically like a big school kind of sports event and track and field athletics and so on. And in addition to that, they have all the parents and everyone go up to the school. There's organised marching, and it's one of the big kind of school days of the year, generally Sports Day. Although it's not at my son's school, but it is at a lot. So there's a lot of things going on this time of year. The typhoon is already over Okinawa. It's going very slow, but it is going to start picking up speed tomorrow, so it should be racing over tomorrow night. Hope everyone is well. One thing, there's been a bit of a mystery. Ever since the September 14, I think it was a Tokyo Tonight show, it might have been 2.5 Oyajis that I did, I noticed that, and it wasn't just me, the 3 old dudes had this problem as well. We noticed that during the show we get like 500-600 comments, and you guys are great with the comments. And I like to go back after the show's finished recording and going back and reading them. And, it's fun to read and to catch what I missed, because, even trying to show the comments live, sometimes it's too fast, sometimes I do miss them. And it turns out that something was happening when, as soon as the video stopped being live, those videos would stop, the comments would stop being visible. And there would only be, I know that there were like 600 comments in the video information, and there's only like 5 comments visible or 10 comments visible. And I was wondering what was going on, so I contacted some people at YouTube. And I didn't get an answer about that. Apparently what is going on is that a lot of people are using Hangouts and live events, and they don't like getting, I can imagine, particularly with the bigger channels, they get like 10,000 comments. And, I can imagine if you're talking about like video game live stuff, and it's like, shoot him, yay, got him, oh, fail, whatever. And you got 10,000 of those comments. The video creators themselves, and obviously some of the biggest ones, the ones with the biggest voices, were saying, we don't want those stupid live comments interfering with the real comments that happen after the video. And I can kind of get that it's that way for some people. For smaller people like myself and perhaps like the 3 old dudes and other people who have noticed this thing and don't like it, for us, the comments are the entire point. This is why we do it. We come back, and it's our little once a week pleasure to go back and read all you guys' comments after the video's done. So apparently YouTube, reacting to the complaints about the live comments being visible after the video went live, decided as an interim solution to make the comments not visible, and they can't, at the moment it can't be fixed. I gave my feedback, which was apparently passed on and will be processed, and who knows, but I said, look, I understand there are some people who don't want to see those comments. At the same time, I can tell you there are people like me who do this entirely for the comments. It's your comments that are the whole point of this for me. I mean, this is just a very lazy version of Facebook, kind of. This is a talking live social network to me. I do mean to interact with you guys. For the guys who are too big and they don't interact with all the plebeians, I get it, right? They don't want to get, they walk around with people with hand sanitizer and stuff, so they don't catch cooties off the. I understand the word for cooties that kids are now using is Ebola. I made an Ebola joke during the weekends. I got told off for it. So I understand there's some sensitivity about that. But yes, they treat you like you have that anyway, right? I get that. If we when I get to have 1 million subscribers and I'm like super famous or whatever, maybe I'll say I do not want to read all these common people's comments. But for now, I like your comments and I want to read them. What I said. Give us a channel setting. Give us a setting in the YouTube channel whether I want to read people's comments on the live videos or not, or put something on the video itself. But don't just like switch them all off. Yeah, so that's what's going on. It is deliberate by YouTube, and it is a reaction to complaints. People are complaining about being able to see live comments after the video. For me, I can't read those comments necessarily while I'm doing it live. I try on this show, but I certainly can't on 2.5 Oyajis. So, hopefully there will be some attention paid to that feedback. I mentioned it to a few people, including some people who, are connected with YouTube. So it should have a little bit of a thing, but, I guess I'll rant for one more minute on this. Google, damn it. The whole thing about YouTube, what YouTube originally was, when YouTube started, I wasn't interested in YouTube. I used Google Video because Google Video had better technical settings for videos, and I figured I just wanted videos to share with my family or to save as backups of my videos. It wasn't until I got into the social thing, and the reason that everyone went to YouTube, even though the video quality was crap, and this is pre-Google days, was they went there because it had this massive community. The talk videos, the videos that Victor used to do, the drama videos. It was a new form of online community. We had the blogs and we had the IRC chat and we had the news groups. And then he started getting to, Facebook was kind of a new thing around the same time as YouTube came out. And that was just based on sharing photos and commenting. And this was based on actually making stuff, that people would actually make video comments to each other and responses to each other. And it was this kind of new way of talking and communicating. And this is the thing, when YouTube acquired it, I guess they thought that they always looked at YouTube as a video broadcasting service, and this was the next cable, which it is, no question. But it was always more than that, and they kind of never seemed to realize that when they got it, that they had actually acquired the best social network. I mean, it was on a level in terms of users and interaction. It was a social network on a level with like Facebook. Now, Facebook was modeled on being a business about getting people's real private personal information. And YouTube wasn't. It was anonymous, but it was like this massive social network. And it was arguably the most successful and biggest social network that Google ever acquired. But yet the first things that they did when they acquired it was they socialized it. They started messing with all the social features. They improved the video and the technical features, which is great. And I love that. And that's why I can do this with you guys now. And it's why I can do 1080p. That's why I can do 4K videos now if I want to. I can do extra. I can do all this cool stuff. They've always been good with the technical stuff. I've got unlimited storage, unlimited upload time. Thank you, Google. I love that stuff. And that was me. That's why I preferred Google to begin with. But I got into the social aspect of it. And, when they tried to desocialize YouTube and then they tried to start up Google Plus, which I was a big fan and supporter of, but it obviously didn't quite work out that well. And again, this is a whole thing. They don't get social. They just don't. This is social. This is for me, and this is and I like Twitter. Actually, I like Twitter a lot, and I like it for similar reasons that I like YouTube. It's easy. There's no creepiness about your personal profile information being given out and all that sort of stuff. But I love that this also has a creativity aspect to it. That you can actually make occasionally cool videos as well. Like Instagram, for example, and which is also simple and massively successful. But yes, and I get it. Cable TV producers probably don't want to see the comments of every home viewer, although they did with The Daily Show, which is being uploaded illegally, and it made the show the incredibly popular show that it was, being illegally uploaded onto YouTube. And the producers of the show, at least Jon Stewart and those guys, they said that they like they do features occasionally of the YouTube comments. They go and they look at them and they do get a kick out of them. But the sponsors, the commercial people, they don't like the comments. They don't like the uncontrollable chaos element of real people making real comments. And I know that when a company wants to set up something as an alternative to a cable broadcasting company, they want to kind of give them comfort by saying it's okay, we can control those comments, we can control the social, we can turn it off. And this is what they do for the broadcast quality big channels, the multi-million subscriber channels out there. This is what they want to do. And you know what? Here's the thing. Google's big enough and they're smart enough and they're powerful enough. I think they can give us both. I think they can give them the no comments. They can delete everyone's comments and not give a shit. That's totally cool. But don't do it to me because I want those. That's what this is all about for us. So, I think they understand me, the people that I talk to. Hopefully this is a temporary thing. I'm going to leave this live at the end of this just for a time. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to view all the comments and cut and paste it. I might put it on my blog. My blog has been dead lately. I might put it there and I'll go through my favorite comments that I missed and I'll come onto it and I will do comment responses and stuff there. In a way, this is good because it's actually making me pay more attention to the comments. And that's why I spent some technical happy time before this video actually playing around with the technical settings, because I was thinking I want to display the comments more. I want to make them more visible. They're not very clear the way that they were showing before. So I played with that, and I think I got a really good solution to that. So end of, well, it's not really a rant. It's just letting you guys know what's going on as I find out what's going on. Good news is I do have confidence in Google that they are going to figure out a way to balance, right, between the little social guys and the big broadcasting corporations. And, you know, I get it. Big corporations won first round, but in the end of the day, come on. I mean, it really feels to me, every time they do something which really desocializes the site, I really feel like Google is killing the goose that laid the golden egg. I don't think they understand what they have sometimes. That's it, and that's so frustrating to me. But, well, clearly, the people that I talk to get it, and they do understand it, so I am confident it'll be fixed. But anyway. So that's why the comments have been missing from my last few videos. I know a couple of people noticed that, and I know that 3 old dudes and some others had the same thing and felt the same way that I did. So anyway, that all said, I'm going to get into the comments, and I'll show you. In fact, you saw it at the start of the video, but I played around with the settings on this a little bit, and I say hello to you all. I'm going to get. I was just going through. I've got. You may have seen my Flipboard. It's linked below the video. There's too much interesting stuff today. And this is actually, by the way, the show, the 2.5 Oyajis, Victor was very, very sick this week. And he sat out the show, and I got on Chi Ranger, and it was really good. We talked a lot about, he's got a fantastic Asian news podcast and news coverage, and he actually does professional broadcasting about this stuff, and he gets like professional, it's actually pretty damn near professional quality news. And I got him on, and we had a fantastic chat just about Asian news. We talked about Hong Kong, Korea, Taiwan, China, Japan, how it all links together. It was a real highbrow chat, actually. So the Wednesday 2.5 Oyajis, the Oyaji Ranger, I called it, was really good. And I don't know, I'm really tempted actually to try to do something more regularly. I've done a couple of shows with him now, of course, and I met him when I was in Korea, and he's a great guy, a very, very smart guy. He's a good guy to talk to. And we had a great chat, so that was very enjoyable, and I highly recommend going back to the show on Wednesday. But for now, let's get into saying hello, and then I'll try to get through what I can on the comments, so on the content that I actually picked up for this week, which I got too much. And that's one thing I talk with them. How do you narrow your content? And yeah. So first thing, I guess, is I hope this is more visible to you, these comments. These look pretty clear to me, and hopefully they look better than usual. I zoomed them up a bit, and I made this. I figure, yeah, you can see me, and I'm looking there, so it looks like I am looking at the comments. They are actually there, but you know, it's the magic of the internet. So anyway, into the comments. I can set up straighter now as well. Look at that. It's got a very straight screen. Travis Moore, hey, good to see you, man. And yes, I finally got the shirt design off to the shirt design people. Although, geez, you sent it to me ages ago, and I hadn't done anything. But yes, thank you for that. And yeah, he made an awesome Tokyo Tonight t-shirt design, which will hopefully become available soon. Ahmed, good to see you. We got Adam Millichip, good to see you. How's things? We got Ahmed, 3 old dudes, good to see you. The usual crew, indeed. That's right, iPhone talk. That's right. So actually, who was this? This was Ahmed was asking, how is the iPhone 6 working out? One thing, I'm not sure whether it's the size that gets me, or whether it is the whether it's the fact that because I use this for work and I've got to put lots of security stuff on, I can't just swipe to open this. I need to always put in like a bunch of stuff, and I find that frustrating. I found this lately around home, especially now that it's not connected to cellular. The battery lasts all day. I put it on sleep mode. I actually use my old phone still quite a lot around the house. It's just really easy to quickly look up. With the new iPhone, it is fantastic. I find that yeah, I don't need my iPad anymore. That's the main thing. The screen is big enough for that. I don't put it in my pocket. I don't put it in my back pocket, certainly. I do put it in my front pocket. And one thing, there are a couple of things. For example, I've noticed that the step tracking thing, which didn't really work on the iPhone 5, it did on the 5S, but not on the 5 and before. I totally forgot about that, and I noticed it was counting my steps when I was walking around. I was thinking, well, that's kind of cool. So I turned on all those kind of health features. And I'm really kind of getting into that lately, like trying to get 10,000 steps and stuff like that. The screen is beautiful. It is fantastic. The only things that have really bugged me, the other thing is I just love this case. And I love the case, the fact that I can put a bunch of cards in there, which I use, for example, this is my NFC. So all my, building and train and everything like that, my credit card, everything, I just touch to pay everything with my phone now. I used to carry it in a separate thing. So this is another thing, because it's got bigger. I can use this basically as a wallet half the time. So that's the thing about the case more than the phone. One thing that does bother me a bit about the phone, which worries me, is that the Wi-Fi and the reception, the internet outside cellular reception, is a bit iffy at times. And I know that previous iPhones have had similar issues with that. I think usually they're fixable by firmware, so I'm just hoping. Oh, also, iOS 8. This is the newest phone, and it should be pretty smooth, but I notice it crashes and freezes a bit. And again, most of the apps haven't been upgraded, so there's a couple of things like that that annoy me a little bit. So, the honeymoon is probably over by now, but it's a beautiful phone. And yeah, I do love this thing. So, by the way, Brittany Pyong, I guess I'll see her soon. I hope she's on here. I think she lives in Korea, and she's from Missouri. And she's in Japan at the moment, which is pretty cool. I hope you're watching live. Anyway, I know I'm a bit behind, so let me skip through the comments, pick up some speed here. But the iPhone is going good. It's going good. I'll not talk more about the iPhone. We've got more bigger things to talk about. Caroline, good to see you. DW Jackson, good to see you back indeed. Who else we got? We got DW Jackson, Robert, 1967 Canada, indeed, talking Japanese stuff there. Emily Louise Maitland, good to see you, and indeed you are getting Typhoon Vongfong, that's the one. Fanphone and Vongfong, and just call them numbers, or call them scumbag, or well, that's what they should all be called. Apparently, Vongfong means killjoy in Chinese, but just call it the numbers work. If you ask me, number 19, Typhoon 19 works for me. Night's Work Japan, your body is ready. I certainly hope so. White Magic 4, good to see you, and Toby Fox, good to see you as well. This is the first time that you've joined live, so welcome. Welcome to the first time live. And that's right, yeah, definitely hope you can catch the whole thing. B-Boy Tripping, good to see you always. You're watching reruns of Beetlejuice from Howard Stern. Well, that's pretty good. You're having a better night than me. S. Rob, good to see you. Lisi, hello from Milan. Wow, that's pretty cool. I would love to be eating the food where you are. Russ-san, good to see you. Benjamin Harris, good night. Good evening to you. Scott Munger, good to see you. Topic for tonight: will China become a democratic country in our lifetime? Can I think of a good a good example of a utopian-like communist country? I'm going to take those both very quickly. I don't. Well, it's possible. I mean, I think 1989 in Eastern Europe proved that really it can happen like that. But I do not think that China will become a democratic country. I think the best thing that could happen to China is it could become like Singapore. It could become like a quasi-democratic, but it won't become like Taiwan unless there's something really dramatic. It's possible. We're not that old here. We're talking scales of even 10 years can make a very big difference. I don't think, though, from what I can see right now, China will become a democratic country in our lifetime. Can I give an example of a utopian-like communist country? Communist country is a tough thing. I think you'd have to go back into history. There are so few communist countries now to compare against. I mean, right now, what do you got? You got like Vietnam, North Korea, Cuba, and China. Probably if you go back historically, by all accounts, Yugoslavia and actually even Romania, apparently they were pretty good in the good old days. Talking to people there, I mean, maybe for a lot of very artificial reasons. Yugoslavia did pretty well. If you expand it to socialism, which also is arguably what Yugoslavia was, if you expand it to socialism, then of course you get the Nordics. You probably even arguably catch New Zealand, which were long considered to have the best standards of living in the world. And they're still up there, especially the Nordics. So, they're not communist, however. I mean, in terms of and when you say communist, I mean, I think there's a nuance there of totalitarian, which again, yeah, I'd say probably the most successful, I would say, from what I can assess, was Yugoslavia. Of course, that didn't end very well. Yeah, I don't know. But there again, at the end of the day, totalitarianism. The idea that it doesn't work isn't strictly true. The Roman Empire went for hundreds of years. Japan had the shogunate for hundreds of years. In fact, if anything, democracy and the type of democracy, as we know, democracies only existed for about 150 years, and it's kind of had a very, very bumpy ride along the way. It's been a lot of revolutions, a lot of stops and starts. Authoritarianism has been very successful as a way of organizing, for the thousands of years of human civilization. it's mostly been monarchs and dictators, and we seem to have a thing that although we want better, we don't seem to necessarily do very well at doing better. But that said, so what's the most successful society? What's the most utopian-like society? And I don't know. I'd like to think that humans don't like to have totalitarian, or we don't do best under totalitarian. But there again, depending on what you consider to be utopian, this is the whole problem with communism or green ideology, which I used to study green ideology, and a lot of people look at the shogunate in Japan as an example of a green society. It was a society that was based around restricting people's use of resources. And it's great and it works, but the whole thing about what communism or what the shogunate, what green ideology requires, it requires some degree of coercion. They always like to think with communism or with green ideology that people will have an enlightened self-interest, that they will all accept new rules of behavior based on enlightened self-interest. But of course what happens is that in the end of the day, the government ends up forcing them into seeing what self-interest is, which is what they say it is, whether you agree with it or not. And I'd like to think that a utopian society is achievable, still with freedom to think, but experience says it's not. What is the conclusion of that? What do I value more? I actually value the freedom above the utopianism myself. Although I think we should always keep aspiring for better informed, better people. But, in the end of the day, I don't think you should ever coerce that. Or at least, not other than reasonable laws. But yeah, anyway, it's an interesting question, Scott Munger. Jeez, you got me started, didn't you? I like to talk about that sort of stuff. And as Ben Harris points out, apparently the travel brochure said North Korea is a paradise. So there you go, that could be it. D.W. Jackson, you can't give a utopian-like example of any type of political system. Well, and that's the point I just made, actually. Most political systems that aspire to be utopian, they need to be totalitarian in order to do that. And then you could say the moment they become totalitarian, the utopian thing fails. It's really hard to get that balance, isn't it, between something which respects human rights and human individuality and can achieve utopianism. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. B-Boy Tripping, glad to hear that you're prepared to stay a long time. Russ-san is interested to know what I think will happen to China over the next few decades. That's the second question to come up. With China, you really don't know. The thing about China is that it is, for all its development and its size and its a massive history or whatever, it is still essentially being run by, well, I won't characterize it. Well, let's just say what it is. It's being run by a political party, and by a closed political party that you have to be a member of and buy into in order to participate in. And it's a closed club, and it's a closed club which is pretty obsessed with survival and with holding on to power. There are some systems. There are monarchies and there are dictatorships, and there are systems like them that have gone on for a very long time, including the imperial systems within China, and it could continue on. But I would really like to think that it's going to be more seriously challenged. And as to me, I guess this is the way most Westerners look at China. We always hope that a bit like Russia with Gorbachev. Gorbachev was a communist president who was enlightened enough to end communism. And I guess that's what everyone hopes will happen in China. The thing about the whole system in China, however, is that it's kind of designed, and I think they took a lot of lessons away from 1989 and what happened with Gorbachev to make sure that no one can ever come in and completely put all the old guys in jail and change the whole system. Like, for example, when she came in, Jiang Zemin, still controlled the Chinese military. He still controlled a lot of mechanisms which gave him a lot of strength to fight back if Xi ever decided to do anything unexpected. And it was, I think that's specifically designed to prevent what happened in Russia happening there. So I think they're very smart about trying to prevent that happening. But there again, if the whole economy and the society collapses, which could happen, it could happen here in Japan or in America or in China, equal possibility. I mean, the political system doesn't determine that. But this is the thing, as they become more economically successful and stable, and the population there, and they're all single kids, they're pretty well educated, and they're not going to keep taking the same answers to the same old questions that the answers that worked for people in the 60s and 70s won't work for the people in the current generation of people in terms of expectations of human rights and so on. I mean, they hit that threshold arguably in '89 in China, but of course, they put that down very forcefully, and I don't think they would hesitate to do another Tiananmen Square massacre again if the same thing happened again. If what happened in Hong Kong happened anywhere else in China right now, yeah, they would be getting shot. No question about it. In fact, I've read some things comparing the two situations and said that it would probably be even more likely to happen now than it did in '89. And that's sad, and it's kind of scary. And the other thing that scares me, is, of course, is that, when you've got a government there that's more intent on holding on to power than it is in the better interest of its citizens or the advancement of humankind or whatever, it means that they won't hesitate for political purposes to start a war with Philippines or Vietnam or Japan, or to grab rocks that mean nothing and kill people over it. Whoa. Had some comment stuff there. So anyway, that's what scares me, and I think we're going to see some of that. And I think the more pressure that the regime there comes under, the more they're going to lash out and cause trouble around all the other countries around them. And that scares me, and we're all going to have to get ready for dealing with that. I do hope that they become more enlightened and that they do become more normalized, and I think there's a lot of precedents for it. You look at Taiwan, you look at Korea, they've all been through the same sort of transition towards democracy that's needed in China. It'll be very hard to do in China, but I hope they can do it. But I think we're in for a real bumpy ride with them, if you ask me. So let's come back and try to find there's a very disturbing comment I just noticed by S. Rob there, but that's all good. So that's right, the typhoon is getting worse. So Scott Munger, yes indeed. You guys talking about China, you distract me. Benjamin Harris, you've heard that South Korea disguised their airports to look like North Korea's. Well, they did that once, and I told you about that last week, right? With the with the Red Army hijacking. But yes, we've got a little chat about Utopia there, which I'd love to continue on with, but I also want to get into the new stuff, so I will skip over that a little bit. Rumso Gaijin, good to see you. Berenger, I always do my best to be good. Brittany, there you are, Brittany. Good to see you. Welcome to Japan. Good to have you here in Japan, and thank you for joining us live. Mikey Chen, good to see you. Konbanwa to you and everyone else. Martin Corgrindham, good to see you. Toby Fox, konbanwa. Nightworks Japan, hey, look, everyone's here. It's a pretty cool crowd. I don't see Kantensai. Maybe he's partying or doing something much more interesting. And indeed, yeah, Russa, maybe the live comments should be synced with the video. Well, that's kind of why I show them live here on the video, at least so that you can see what I'm seeing, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah. Oh, Tokyo Sonata 89, good to see you as always. Another regular. Uncle Elias, good to see you. Were there actually button links to video responses? There used to be. There used to be actual built-in video responses, but that's all gone. It's kind of sad. But yeah, it is what it is. And we are almost caught up, although I get a feeling if I go down the bottom there's going to be a lot of channels suddenly come in. Google's going to be an umbrella corporation. I think that's probably what it is. Ahmed, run for your lives. Maybe. Yeah, well, that's right, Travis Moore. And this is coming back. Sorry, now we're getting back to the stuff I was talking about before. Indeed, that maybe they do just need to put a checkbox in on the comments thing. That's what I suggested, actually. Tokyo Sonata down the bottom. Oh, can I make that visible? I can. Tokyo Sonata asking, do I ever, or who asked that? Wait a minute. Did it just scroll? Someone just asked me, do I ever say okini rather than arigato? Oh, you know what? This just loaded all of a sudden. Let me just B-boy tripping. There we go. B-boy tripping. Do I ever say okini instead of arigato in Tokyo just to throw people for a twist? No, I don't really do Kansai Ben. I'm a bit of yade or yaneng or whatever, but yeah, I don't really do that. We got caps. It'll be like you're all shouting. That's right. Dude Jericho, hey, good to see you, man. William Geisler. Oh, very good to have you live, sir. Thank you for joining. This is a privilege of joining live. That I will say your name and say hello to you as you say hello to everyone. So very good to catch you live, finally indeed. Or for you to catch me live, or however that works. Where's the cornflakes? Asks Razal Gul. Good question. I don't know. Ben Harris. a bit of a conversation going on there. I am going to scroll all the way down to the end. I think we've just about caught up. But Ahmed just saying democracy doesn't exist. We're all living in oligarchs regimes, with better ones and worse ones. You could consider Switzerland or Iceland as democracies. Yeah, well, I guess so. Yes, point sort of taken. Well, that's right, and I think things are getting less democratic over time. I mean, American democracy in particular is really depressing to me lately. I mean, there's only two parties. They're both bought out by lobby interests, and political debate there has just turned into crap. Which is always. It's why I don't watch American news anymore. It used to be more interesting. Globy, 1989, Poland went okay, but that's right. China had the Tiananmen Square massacre, and that's the whole point. 1989 was a very, very interesting, probably one of the most interesting years in human history. Actually, I was very lucky to be alive. And at that time, I guess I was 14, but I was interested enough to really follow it closely at that time. A lot of stuff happened around then. And the next year, of course, was the Gulf War. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip down to the bottom. Oh, I'm just going to say hello to Landing Wombat. Good to see you indeed. Computer won't play sounds. I'm sorry about that. Well, you can lip read this afterwards. So, yes. Let's skip to the end, and there we. Oh, Raz Al Ghul. Sorry, I assumed that I had mentioned you actually, because you're always like the first one there. But Raz Al Ghul, of course. Let the games begin. You are always the first guy in there. I mean, today it was Travis, but no. Very good to. Very good to see you. And with that, I'm going to get into the good stuff. So let's get into the topics. We are halfway through, and I've got a lot of topics and stuff to talk about tonight. I'm trying a new display thing, which again with this I hope will also make this a little bit more readable. Let me just bada bing this over. Boom. This is my Tokyo Tonight topics. This is from my Flipboard magazine. The link to this is below, and these you should go and read these. And there isn't enough time to go through all of them. And actually, I've got more of them. I've got the full Hikosine. I've got the Japan articles. I've got the tech in YouTube. I've got the Japanese language stuff. And this is like a selection of the best stuff from all of them, and I actually didn't have time today to whittle them down. I got too many. But let's do this. Let's get in and see what we can get through. So first one is this article talking about, can Japan overcome the language barrier of foreign workers? This is talking particularly about the fact that they want to increase the number of nurses that are coming to Japan. But they keep finding that they're falling down not on the nursing skills, but on the actual Japanese language skills. And part of this is because they don't get to start learning Japanese until after they come to Japan. So the government's actually started setting up for example, in Philippines and Indonesia, they're setting up local-based Japanese language training to have them more prepared for Japanese before they come to Japan. It is tough. I guess with English, it's a different thing because people learn English everywhere, right? And it's all the movies. It's very popular. You travel around the world, and English is a very global and accessible language. Japanese is not. So it's good to see that the government's picked up on the issue, that they have something like, I saw a number in this article, something like they have thousands of these people come over, and such a small number of them can get through, and it's always just because of the language thing. So it's good to see that they're addressing that. So that's an interesting topic. There's a thing here about the best 3 destination restaurants in Japan, apparently picked up by travelers. There's a good thing here. This is from my favorite, from Itai News. It's all in Japanese, but it's talking about there's actually a point which I always make, which is put here on a blog, which is asking and let me just see if I can actually pull it out here. It's why does Japan fight so hard to eat whale when no one in Japan actually eats it? And people talking about, who would want to eat it? It's too expensive, doesn't taste that good. And they're all saying, isn't it just the crazy right wingers and just wasting our tax money? If you're an anti-whaling campaigner, go on. This is like the right wing internet is saying, why are we spending so much money fighting for whaling when none of us eat whale? This is the point I always make, and they're making it for me here on the internet. So I thought that was kind of cool. On staying sane as an expat in Japan. Where is that one? There it is. So I picked this one up, and this was actually a guy talking about tips for a guy who's leaving Japan after however many years. I guess it was 3 or 4 years, which is pretty much the standard length, and it was a guy going home. This is taken from This Japanese Life. And kind of comes up with some tips. One tip is he suggests that it's healthy to complain, but only do it on Tuesdays. I'm of the mind it's not healthy to complain at all, and I still don't. I wouldn't want to run into this person on Tuesdays. But yes, if you're someone who has to complain all the time, I guess focusing is one way to control it on the other 6 days of the week. Do it on Tuesdays. Try to avoid it if possible. Suggest that every friendship is a cultural exchange, which I guess is true to some extent, although you shouldn't get too much into visiting the zoo kind of thing on it, but sure. If friendship makes you anxious, stop calling it a friendship. You can be alone. You don't have to be out and sociable and all the time. I think there's a big pressure when you're an expat to try to do that. For me, I kind of like that. I like spending time alone and watching crappy TV and so on, so that was okay. At the same time, you don't have to be alone. You know, you can get out whenever you want. You don't want to cultivate. He says that's another problem. You don't have to have fun. And the final point, which he points out, and this is all unapparent, you know, there's a lot of stuff fleshed out with this. He points out, and this is something I kept telling myself from day one, because you have some really shitty days here sometimes. Just remind yourself always, you can leave any time. You can always leave. And telling yourself, you know, and a lot of people, it's a perfectly reasonable decision to make sometimes. Sometimes people pressure themselves into staying when they're not happy. So yeah, I thought there's some good tips in there, some good stuff in there. That was you can see Wendy Tokunaga. This is from my readables, from my favorite Twitter recommended list, and this is she posted that one. So this one's from Rocket News. So this is a guy who wrote a blog apologizing for ignoring the gaijin nod, you know, which is the it doesn't happen so much in Tokyo, because in Tokyo there are so many foreigners that I just one other crowd, but it definitely happens once you get about, this person's 30 minutes out of Tokyo, and probably from that radius out, there's this kind of thing whenever you see another foreign person, you're walking down the street and you make eye contact, oh, it's another foreigner, and you kind of think, you got to get the little salute, the little, you know, I like to do that, but you know, it's pretty much the old, hello sir, you know, good to see you. I was a real dick when I first came to Japan. I used to deliberately ignore people, and I'm so embarrassed by the fact I did that now. This person unwittingly did it, and I guess it's because he probably had a beautiful iPhone 6 Plus or something like that caught his attention at the time, that he didn't acknowledge it, and he felt terrible about it apparently. I used to deliberately just fuck them with it, right? And so don't say hello to me just because I'm a gaijin, which was stupid. Don't do that. Say hello. It is kind of cool. You do share this kind of bond. Although, of course, some people, when I tweeted this, commented back. See, so is this what as an Asian American, is this what the Asian Americans are missing out on? They're missing out on those secret little nod salutes, which visible foreigners can give each other here in Japan. And I guess I never really got that into it. I certainly won't. I'll return it now. I probably started doing that after about 5 years. My first 5 years I didn't. I guess there are some people who feel like all of a sudden there is this phenomenon of foreigners who feel like, oh, now I'm like a black person, and they feel like they get a little bit too excited about that. We kind of are, and we're kind of not. You know, I mean, we're very, very, very lucky, privileged as minorities go. But yeah, there is that nice thing about being able to acknowledge, and I do it definitely. You know, I try to be friendlier now anyway, but there are some people who plainly, like, they are a tourist, and they are like, oh, look, another tourist or another English teacher. And I used to even detect that, or maybe I didn't even detect it. I just believed that's how it was myself. I'm like, I'm not one of you. But you are. I was. So yeah, it was kind of stupid. But it's kind of a fun blog to read anyway. Rochelle Cobb, there's been a bit of talk about noise pollution in Tokyo, mainly around the thing that apparently, you know, and this is one thing, I talk every week about how the demographic thing is having such a real impact on Japan at the moment. One of the areas that this is really impacting is that there's this big thing with old people complaining about, you know, young people. Like they're trying to stop kids being able to run in parks, and they're trying to stop, you know, they're legislating against youth. More and more, they're shutting down nightclubs, they're shutting down barbecues at beaches. All the stuff that the current old generation got to do when they were young, they're banning for the current young people to do. So another thing that's really happening now is a lot of old people, and there was a particularly prominent case of this recently, are suing kindergartens and primary schools for the noise made by the children in those things. They're actually suing schools for the noise of children in a country with a population crisis. Fortunately, not only was there a recent case in Tokyo where they lost their lawsuit, but on top of that, the Tokyo legislature, the Tokyo prefectural legislature, is actually passing an amendment to specifically exclude the noise of children from regulated noise. And it is ironic that you can actually sue a school for the noise of children, but somehow you can't sue, it seems, extremist religious or political or election campaigns or yakimo or second-hand goods sales. There are so many noise trucks and so many loudspeaker trucks that drive around everywhere here, and sometimes at completely inappropriate times of night and during the day, and they're a complete nuisance, and they're not regulated or enforced. But some kid plays catchball and they get sued. It's crazy. And this is something that bothers me. It obviously bothers Rochelle Kopp, who is from Japan Intercultural Consulting, and I find her very good to interact with on Twitter. And she picked this. This is actually her blog, that she doesn't like all the that noise regulations should be more enforced and correctly enforced, and I completely agree with that. Another one which got some conversation. Is it time for Japan to get over trying to connect your personality and your blood type? I've talked about this a bit before. To every single one of you coming to Japan or about to interact with Japanese people, learn this. And is it time for Japan to get over blood types? Is it time for us to get over astrology? Sure, but why is it such a thing that it bothers you in the first place? I mean, I know it bothers. I used to be in the astronomy society, and I used to know people who would write angry letters to the newspaper and magazines that had like horoscopes in them. I think horoscopes are far more embarrassing, actually. People that try to prophesize, that you're gonna have a financially difficult period in the next week. Blood types compared to that, I mean, they're far less damaging. I guess the thing is that those stereotypes are so deeply embedded in Japanese society, and they have some positive and negative aspects. It is funny to me how, at least with Japanese people, but whether it's self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever, they do have a high hit rate for me, So remember the 4 types. O's, I'm an O. I'll say it, I'm an O. O's are high-level, not detailed people, big vision people, sociable. Relatively, we forget stuff quickly, kind of can be forgetful and messy and sloppy, but at the same time we don't stay angry for very long. We don't get politicians are O's a lot, or company, that kind of it's a thing with politicians that they all say that they are, even if they're not. B's are like artists. They're people who are driven by passion and emotion, and they're good creative types, good passionate type people, good sports people, for example. Good competitive sort of people, warriors, artists, that kind of thing. A's are detailed people. Japanese think of themselves. Japanese understand apparently that Japanese have an unusually high rate of A's, and so they think that defines the national character as the A. The national character is the hardworking, detail-oriented engineer, artisan salaryman, and that's an A type. And ABs are the smallest group, of course, but they're seen as creative, odd, always thinking outside the box, always being a bit unorthodox, a bit different, being very, very intelligent, and I really like ABs. And it's fun. I don't know, I find there's a social kind of a way of breaking the ice in a society where there's, very little to distinguish people in terms of appearance and stuff like that. I find it's okay. I think it's okay. I quite enjoy it, actually. It's a fun icebreaker, and I would say, rather than point out how stupid it is, when we do much more stupid things ourselves, I mean, think about it. I think it's okay, and actually I would say not only don't fight it, I would say go out and learn it, because it will, in social situations, it's actually very helpful. Even, of course, it's all bullcrap, but people are stupid. It's okay, if you ask me. I talked a bit about this with Chi Ranger during the week. So apparently it's happened. They've indicted the head of the Sankei Shimbun, the bureau chief in Seoul. Sankei Shimbun, remembering one of the big 4 newspapers, which are the Mainichi, the Asahi, the Yomiuri, and the Sankei. And if you go left to right, left wing is the Asahi, left middle is Mainichi, right middle is Sankei, is Yomiuri, and more right than that is Sankei. And they're the 4 kind of mainstream, some of the biggest distribution newspapers in the world, and for whatever reason, so Park wasn't happy that there were articles going around in Korea, in Korean media, including conservative, and she's conservative, so the newspapers that usually would support her, including the Chosun Ilbo, put an article that she was while the Sewol ferry was sinking, she was incommunicado, and some of the speculation about that was that she was with a recently divorced man. And they printed this in the Korean news, and obviously she wasn't very happy about it. But rather than sue the Korean newspapers about it, it wasn't until the Japanese Sankei Shimbun quoted the Korean papers talking about it that they got that they stopped the guy. They put the guy on a travel ban. He wasn't allowed to travel. He was kept there for a couple of months under investigation, and now they take him to court for suing and defaming the president on the basis that it was a completely baseless claim. But he didn't originate the claim. I mean, granted, you can still, by repeating it, you can still be guilty of it, I suppose. But in the end of the day, this is clearly just media censorship, and this is where everyone's kind of freaking out at Korea at the moment. That this is, well, her acting like her dad. I mean, her dad was a military dictator who loved to put journalists in prison and shoot them and do all sorts of things. He was also very pro-Japan, and he was actually also very good personal friends with Abe's father, and was a member of the Japanese military and a war criminal, probably. And that was her dad, and she's been trying so desperately to distance herself from the image of her father, and she's apologized for all the bad stuff that her father, the military dictator, did. And now she's arresting newspaper editors and doing exactly the same thing as her father did. She's actually taking the country back into fascist. I mean, this is fundamentally, arresting a newspaper editor over something like this is fundamentally anti-democratic. And she's got a family tradition of being a collaborator with the Japanese and being anti-democratic, and so far she seems to be trying to avoid going near Abe, because I guess it's part of that. She doesn't want anyone pointing out, oh, she's just like her dad, but now she's being just like her dad, and it's stupid. So very disappointing that that's happened, and it does look like a cheap shot. It looks like a way of threatening domestic press, by getting away with it by doing it to a Japanese person instead. And it's also convenient because the Sankei is one of the cheerleaders for the persecution of the Asahi Shimbun over its retractions about the Comfort Woman story. So it looks kind of convenient, but geez, I mean, it's just stupid. So go and read all the details about it. There's a thing there by the Japan Times. And, I mean, this is the thing. Korea's there bashing Japan all about its 70-year-old history of when it was fascist for a time. And now they're acting, modern Korea now is acting exactly the same way as Japan acted in the 1930s. They're arresting journalists over nothing. So it's stupid and it's disappointing, but this is just more stupidity between the two governments, which I really hope we can put behind. I mean, Japan and Korea should be friends. They should really be friends, and this sort of stupidity should just not happen. Anyway, another thing, 10 ways to prepare for reverse culture shock and leaving Japan. I skimmed over this, but I saw them and they were pretty good tips. Let me just see if I can find it here. I'm going to open on this other screen over here. Where is it? 10 ways to prepare. So I'll quickly go through the details. You should go and read the article, but the 10 tips are, well, first thing is, I guess, you might feel like you're in a foreign country, even though you're moving back home, which I definitely felt when I first went back to Australia for the first time. Even though you've kept in touch with family and friends, those relationships might be different now. Absolutely, that's true. People may see you the same way they did before you went to Japan, and that's true. It's like you've been kidnapped by aliens. There's no recognition of the growth or the changes that have happened with you. I know a lot of people actually who get that. I don't get that so much, but I know people who get that and find that very frustrating. Be aware of your expectations. And that's what really caught me off guard. I was expecting everything to be very familiar, very comfortable. And geez, I find going back to New Zealand and Australia very disconcerting now. It's very different to the way it was when I was there, which was now, let's face it, 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. I mean, it's getting close to Back to the Future territory, isn't it? It's getting close to driving the DeLorean and being in the same town, and everything's completely different. I mean, that's kind of the scale, the time. It's what I mean, Back to the Future was based on a 30-year time jump. Well, I'm half of a Back to the Future DeLorean trip. So yes, give yourself time to rest if you need it. Yes, definitely. I needed to lie down. I needed to ease myself back into being back in Australia, definitely. Get involved with Japan-related projects to keep yourself connected to the country and work through those emotions. Indeed, that's a very good idea. And I think that's a great thing about traveling to other countries, is that it creates a seed for interaction and keeping those ties. Go out and help Japanese people and go and connect with Japanese communities outside of Japan, back where you are. I think that's a great suggestion. This is a very good list. Your English might sound funny. Yeah, my English sounds funny. Screw you. But yes, it does. I don't have a New Zealand accent at all anymore. I don't know what my accent is, and I can confirm that the Americans and the Australians, less so the Americans, definitely the Australians, and some others, they have the same thing. Their accent goes to hell. We all start sounding like this. I don't know what this is. This is just an accent, I guess, that we speak because it becomes easier to understand for the Japanese people. A New Zealand accent's really quite mumbly and twangy, and it's really hard for people not from New Zealand. Even in Australia, it's hard for them to understand us half the time. So you start to speak so people can understand your accent, which means we speak a bit more clearly and a bit more slowly and with different words. And as a result, no one thinks we're from that country anymore. Finding a job can be hard. I'm sure it can. In fact, I've heard a lot of stories about that. And recognize the 5 stages of repatriotism and grief. And there's a video linked, which actually I just noticed that. The 5 stages of grief, which I was an expat's wife channel. Okay, well that's... So the 5 stages of grief apply to a lot of things. And the ones that they've got here is, first of all, denial of the situation they're in, then anger, then bargaining, depression, acceptance. So many things in life go through that. And yeah, okay, so that's a pretty good list. So that's well worth reading anyway. Surviving, 10 Ways to Prepare for Reverse Culture Shock. Good thing here by Tofu, I'm not going to go into the detail, but the good thing about understanding Japan's garbage system, and don't take it lightly. I know we have a lot of countries that are based around in Australia as well, having big green wheelie bins. You can just throw all your garbage into it, and it's very convenient, and you don't have to think about it. In Japan, it's a real ritual, and you can really get into a lot of trouble for not separating your garbage properly. People inspect each other's garbage from the same neighborhood, and they like report on, and they'll badmouth people, and there's an expectation. I mean, there are actually, when you have places that won't rent apartments to foreigners, maybe the first thing, maybe the second thing. The first thing they'll say is, I don't speak the language, so I couldn't communicate with them. But even then, the second thing that they'll say, that what they needed to communicate with the foreigner about, and what I got into trouble as a landlord for having a foreigner there was that they didn't sort their garbage. And that might seem like nothing, but that's the number one reason that Japanese apartments that don't rent to foreigners won't rent to foreigners, because they don't sort the garbage, they don't follow the rules with the garbage, and the landlords feel like they can't take responsibility because they can't explain it in English to them. It's a big deal. I can't tell you how much. I mean, remember, Japan has no landfill space. It burns it because there's nowhere to throw it. You can't. In New Zealand, we just dig a big hole and we just throw the stuff in trailer loads. We don't sort it. We don't do anything with it. When I was a kid, in Japan, you have to sort it. You have to figure out what can be burned, and everything that can be burned has to be burned. And we have the toxic, smoke going over. They're very good at burning at very high temperatures and doing it very efficiently. But this is a country the same size as California or Britain, or a bit bigger than New Zealand, and it's got 120 million people. They can't just throw rubbish everywhere. So yeah, it's a really big deal. I've said it 10 times now, so go and read the Tofugu thing. It really takes you through how the garbage thing works here. And it is the biggest justification for discrimination against foreigners, the fact that we don't follow the rules with it. And it's true. I mean, all our lives, all my life, I was in a place where sorting garbage was not as stressful or detailed or as much effort and pain as it is in Japan. And it's natural that we ignore the rules when we come here, when we're not used to them. And no one explains them to you when you come into Japan. But they really matter. And one foreigner breaking these rules really does ruin it for the others. So, it makes a big thing. So go and read that, please. Suicide in Japan. I was looking at this. This is actually Nippon.com. Durfee is the editor of the site. And this is it talks about a lot of recent high-profile cases and recent stats on where this is going. Let me just see if I can find it. So yeah, it shows rates. The economy's been kind of crap, but the rates have been dropping lately, which is good. But this is after a really bumpy ride where they've gone up very high in recent years, and looking at the reasons and the trends with that in Japan. I know that there is a perception that Japan is the suicide capital of the world. It's not quite the capital, but it certainly is up there, and it's up there higher than it should. And there is cultural reasons and economic and all sorts of reasons for it, but definitely go and check that out. Yeah. There's a thing here about also apparently Tokyo kept its ranking as the 4th best place to live in the world, And I think that was measured on a whole bunch of criteria, including things like access to cultural stuff, the size of economy and all this sort of stuff. And I think the cities above it were New York. Here we go. Where is it? Right. So number 1 for 3 years in a row has been London. Number 2 was New York. 3 was Paris, and 4 was Tokyo. And in terms of the way the areas that it fell down, I mean, Japan did very well in terms of things like, for example, exchange and culture, access to culture. Transport infrastructure got kind of lower, which was kind of surprising to me, actually, that it came it was 6th, or actually, no, it was 10th on the list. I think it's because the trains here aren't 24 hours like they are in other cities. But yeah, apparently this was a ranking done by... who did this, by the way? Toshi Ranking, Tokyo Yongi. So, okay, it's some urban research center anyway did this list, and NHK made a big deal about it. They surveyed 40 cities around the world, and here we go. So based on economy, culture, exchange, traffic access, 6 criteria. Tokyo came out awesome. So yes, Tokyo is awesome. We're in the right city. And I would have always considered, not London, a lot of Kiwis do go to London, and it came out number 1. I would have considered New York as an alternative to Tokyo, but no, I'm very glad I came to Tokyo and that these people agree. There's a little article here in The Economist, which is also very good. I like politics, and this is talking about how completely, what a wasteland the political opposition is in Japan and why. Very good article, worth going and reading. This is the thing I was talking earlier. This is about the regulations to exclude children's voices from sound pollution regulations. And this is, again, the dispute going on, the stupidity with Korea that's been going on. There's a thing here. A guy tweeted, apparently. This was kind of funny. I wonder if I can get this. So a guy tweeted here in Japanese, Morgan Robertson, just talking about the industry of foreigners. And this is true. If you're a foreigner and you register with a talent agency and you're willing to go onto TV and just say how wonderful Japan is all the time, there's a big kind of economy of foreigners who will do that. He says that, the gara ga geki yasu de, they get no crap pay for it, but he's highlighting on Twitter the industry which most Japanese are not familiar about, which is particularly international journalists, he's saying in particular. So not just normal people, but there's a small industry of very highly underpaid international journalists who can get onto any TV show just by smothering Japan in praise, which is very true. Signs that Japan's getting back into recession. We're running out of time, but this is also interesting this week. They're talking about they're going to increase the sales tax more, even though the last sales tax increase appears to have killed consumption. Inflation's going up because the yen's worth nothing, so prices are going up, but it's not connecting to extra profits for companies, so they're not increasing salaries. So salaries are still going down, but prices are going up. Unemployment and economic growth has been stalled. And now there's signs that the government could be going into a recession, which of course the Bank of Japan's never going to say, because it's headed up by an appointed Ministry of Finance bureaucrat whose job is to go there and do whatever Abe says, including be a politician and say that everything is awesome, which is not his job. So yeah, there's some talk about this. This came from Daiwa, I think, originally, and some people now getting very concerned that things are not only not going quite as well as was hoped, but are actually doing the opposite. They're actually going badly. So there are some signs of that there. Now this one I wanted to get. This is really dumb, but I actually had some conversations on Twitter about this when I retweeted this. So this is translated into Japanese from a Reddit thread. And the Reddit thread talks about motivation. It's a different perspective on motivation. There's some bad language in it, but I will, nonetheless, I'll bring it over here. Boom. And I kind of agree with this. So I thought I'll show it. There's a translation there in Japanese. The translation is not direct. It's close as anyway. So here it is. Here is the philosophy of motivation, which I do kind of agree with. Fuck motivation. It's a fickle and unreliable little dickfuck, and it isn't worth your time. Better to cultivate discipline than to rely on motivation. Force yourself to do things. Force yourself to get up out of bed and practice yourself. And practice. Force yourself to work. Motivation is fleeting and it's easy to rely on because it requires no concentrated effort to get. Motivation comes to you. You don't even have to chase after it. Discipline is reliable. Motivation is fleeting. The question isn't how to keep yourself motivated. It's how to train yourself to work without it. I think really good discipline can discipline you to be motivated. I think it's good to have both. But it is a good point. I think this is, and this is something I'm, well, at risk of sounding old, you talk about a generation of people who haven't been spanked or, who haven't been kind of blown up or whatever and have been treated with kid gloves. There is a thing, maybe this is every generation, but certainly it's been more noticeable lately that you have a lot of young people starting jobs now and they can't take criticism. They just can't. They can't, take feedback. And there's this thing that, you always, TV is so much about, self-confidence and self-value and trying to figure out how to make this best for me. And this whole idea of the harsh word of just being tough, suck it up, there's this expectation that people are supposed to be like emotional support for people nowadays in jobs. And I have to deal with that myself. And I'm not a believer in that. I think you have to manage your own personal stuff. And I think the best types of people are people who can take criticism and who can motivate themselves, and I think it's discipline. I think discipline is a highly undervalued and forgotten value. So this person said this, and this was translated into Japanese on Labacube, which is a site which does this. It's particularly Reddit. It takes a lot of Reddit stuff and it translates it into Japanese. I thought it was very good, so I took that and had some interesting discussions with Japanese people, including I gave some different translations of that. Oh man, and look at this. Well, see, and this is why I'm going to come back to the comments after this. But I think here again, Shisaku, Michael Kuchek, who I very much enjoy following, did a great different angle on Nakamura, the guy who, one of the 3 recipients of the Blue LED Nobel Prize. He pointed out, apparently, and I didn't actually follow, the story around this guy Nakamura, he's got American citizenship, and they always say this is the guy who invented the Blue LED. He only got $180 bonus reward from the company for inventing it. The company went on to make billions of dollars. He got so outraged that he left Japan and he became an American and gave up on Japan because of it. That's the kind of story that was always been told around this guy. Kuchek has a slightly different angle on this. He points out apparently that, this guy was employed as a full-time, lifetime employee. In Japan, it's really, really, really almost impossible to fire someone. I mean, you practically have to try to burn down the building. And even then, it's the second time. The first time, you have to try, you have to give them a recovery plan. I mean, it's really, really hard. So this guy was told to do certain sort of tasks, and he ignored that. And he used the company lab as his own personal research lab. And he sat there wasting money and not producing anything, and apparently being very unproductive and annoying the company that didn't know what to do with this guy. And they tried to find all sorts of ways to get rid of this guy because they weren't allowed to fire him. But this guy did everything to kind of get fired. He kind of said screw you to the company, and he kind of freeloaded off the company for many years. And the way that the company kind of sees it is that when he finally actually produced something of value, well, he kind of owed them that because he had kind of wasted a lot of their time, and he had kind of freeloaded off of them, was their view. And the conclusion that Michael Kuchek comes to is that you could argue that the Nobel Prize in this case is an example of Japan's odd labor laws. The fact that he wasn't fired, the fact that he couldn't be fired even though he was completely insubordinate and completely ignoring what the company said, and he kept working on the Blue LED for years at the expense of the company, which was trying to stop him and wasn't able to do it. And that resulted in the Nobel Prize winning world-changing Blue LED. And that's why maybe that could only have happened in Japan, and it couldn't have happened anywhere else because the people doing it would have been fired. I thought it's a really nice different angle on the many stories that you can read about the Blue LED thing. I thought it was very cool. And yeah, well worth a read, as of course this blog always is. So there's some more stuff about travel in Japan, which I've got there. I mentioned this earlier as well with Chi Ranger. It turns out that Shintaro Ishihara's plan to create a casino for him and his friends to go and gamble in Japan and spend all their money and make lots of money for the Tokyo government is not likely to go through the way that he originally planned it, because Komeito, government coalition partner, they don't want to have. They're worried about gambling addiction and the societal effects, so they want to do what Singapore did and make it limited only to non-Japanese, to foreigners. And that looks like the only way that the bill is now going to get passed through Parliament. So we have now the bill is going to be that the casinos in Japan are going to be foreigners only. Not that I'm really into gambling, and not that I think that this is even a remotely good idea or that it will make any money if they only restrict it to foreigners, because people aren't going to travel to Japan to gamble. Japanese, the whole idea in the first place was to capture all the Japanese who travel to Macau and spend billions of dollars, or that travel to, Las Vegas and spend billions of dollars, and to capture all that money in Japan and put the money into the economy here, and that's going to be lost by doing this, which says to me maybe they shouldn't even bother. But it is kind of funny that Ishiharu's plan to go gambling, it looks like, is now going to be limited only to foreigners when he's not a very foreigner-friendly guy in general. There's a bit of discussion about how Article 9 was one of the Nobel Peace Prize candidates. Fortunately, it didn't win. It would have been kind of stupid because it was kind of as part of a political campaign against the current government to reinterpret the Constitution, which that's one for another episode. But yeah, it would have been kind of political and weird, frankly, to try to give Japan, and frankly, for giving Japan a Nobel Prize for not changing the Constitution, which under the rules set under GHQ, who wrote the Constitution, as a punishment against Japan, it was impossible to change. Now it's possible to change for the first time in 70 years. So the Nobel Committee giving Japan a prize for not changing it now that they can is kind of putting pressure on them not to keep accepting a very nice constitution, but a constitution written by America that America would never accept for itself, that it imposed on Japan as a punishment. It's like giving an award to someone for not escaping prison, in a prison that he wasn't able to escape from for 70 years. It wasn't his choice to be there, and he would have escaped if he could have, but it's kind of the situation Japan's in. So yeah, there was a bit of a weird thing around that, but it was an individual campaign, I think possibly by this lady. It was by a housewife lady who hates Abe, and she's also tweeted and done a lot of very political anti-Abe and anti-LDP stuff. It would have been highly political, well, as it always is. I mean, it was, even with Malala, of course, a political statement, but not one worth making. So yes, and that is it. I've covered all the topics. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I would usually say good night now. It's been an hour, more than an hour, and I'd say peace, and I'll zoom out. But I would actually read all of your comments. And all these wonderful comments that you've put here are going to disappear after this video. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go and I'm going to see if I can find if there's a way that I can capture all of them. And you know what? Maybe I can't. That's not the first comment. The first comment was by Travis Moore, and it's not there. So is there some way for me to capture all the comments? You know what, maybe there's not. Well, I'm going to capture all the ones that are on there now. I'm going to cut, paste, boom. And I'm going to figure out a way to keep these. So I'm going to keep the video open while I figure out a way to save all these comments before they disappear. And I'll put them probably on my blog. And for the ones that I catch there that are questions towards me, that are not saved by the video switching over, I am going to end this soon, and so you can leave, if you leave comments on the video after the video is finished, I will see those, and I will actually look at those, and I will respond to them. I haven't been good at doing that lately, but I will do that now, because now I want to fix this comment thing. But otherwise, I'm going to go through, and if there's any really good questions or comments there, I will take them, extract them, and I will put them onto my blog, and I will respond to them there. So that way, these things are not lost forever, which is currently the way things apparently work. So it is very good to see you all, and I guess I'm going to have a super awkward long ending because of this. And can I save this? Oh, that's not exactly the way that I want it. I'm just going to see. So anyway, I'm gonna have a. Let me just see if I can do this in a way. I'm gonna shut down the video thing anyway. But otherwise, I am going to leave the video on until I can rescue the comments, and then I'm going to switch it off. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. There's a lot of stuff to cover tonight, and I do hope, boom, that we can sort out the comments issues soon. And I will see you again on 2.5 Oyajis this week, which Victor will also, he's actually got a prior engagement, so he won't be able to join this week. So it'll be 2 weeks in a row. I'll see if I can find another co-host for that. And I will catch you same time, same place next Sunday. So I hope you enjoyed that, and peace. Boom. And now here's the awkward ending, because now I have to figure out how to rescue these comments. Boom. Okay, let me try this. So the thing is, I can't see the comments before that first one by Dude Jericho. And there's no view all comments visible here. Boom. Boom. Okay, but I could cut and paste those. And that's 16 pages, so that's quite a lot. But, and we're talking about blood types. So we've definitely missed about 2/3 of the comments that are there. But let me just see before I switch this off. Is there some way? There's a way to add moderators there, but there's no way to simply go and view all the comments. Okay, well, that's it. I saved what I could save. So, that's cool. Anyway, thanks for everyone for joining. My throat's got a bit funny, so my voice has got a bit odd. So I will, Razoga wants to co-host on Wednesday. Maybe. I don't know. AKG Red Run picked the, I actually said that out loud. So there you go. You got me saying, yeah, it wasn't, well, it's from Reddit, so what do you expect, right? Anyway, it's been very good chatting with you all. I saved the comments I could save. Hopefully we'll save all of them next time, but good seeing you all, and peace. Boom. He said, without having it all set up to end the video. Boom. Should be there.